Thank you all. I'm delighted to welcome you all to our showroom. We have an amazing panel for you today. I will start with Claire. Claire German, who most of you probably know. She's the CEO of Chelsea Harbour Design Centre. I believe, being in so many design centres across the world, that Claire is leading the way with Chelsea Harbour, with all her initiatives. But prior to being in Chelsea Harbour, she was the publishing director for House and Gardens and also on the board of Condé Nast. Did I get that right, Claire? Welcome, Claire.
Thank you.
And then Catherine, ladies first, Gianluca. So Catherine and I met, I believe, about 21 years ago when we both had showrooms on Walton Street prior to us moving here. And we started quite small. Catherine had the apartment upstairs, and I remember it was so elegant, but really teeny, just like ours was. But now today, Catherine has this beautiful design studio in the heart of Chelsea with about 50 staff members supporting her. She designs everything from castles to villas to apartments to yachts to country houses and everything in between with such style and elegance. Welcome, Catherine. And then Gianluca, for those of you who don't know Gianluca, he's the style editor of World of Interiors, a very popular magazine with all of us, I think. He was also one of the instigators of Cabana magazine, which I'm also totally dedicated to. Amongst other things, he is advisory to Ralph Lauren, Dior Home, Tod's, Polyform, Janori 1735. Have I forgotten any of them, Gianluca? And he is also on the board of the National Gallery Museum and Oxford Pitt Rivers Museum. So welcome, Gianluca. So I'm now going to hand over to Claire, who will moderate our panel for us today.
Thank you so much, Bernie. And what a treat to be able to moderate such a distinguished panel. So I couldn't be happier. And thank you all for coming and joining for the Design Destination London event. And it's so wonderful to see so many of you here. So without further ado, it's a huge allure for everyone to be even considered to be published in a UK magazine. So I think it's such an interesting topic. It's going to be very insightful, and the golden nuggets that you will be learning from Gianluca and Catherine are really priceless. So let's get going. How do we stand out when you sort of send things through? How does it wink at the editors, and what's that process? So that's what we'll be kind of discussing. So let's ask the panel, all of you first of all, is there a difference how audiences absorb content in the UK versus the US? Or is it quite the same?
Well, working for a publication, it's we try to inspire people. I know it's a very big word and it's almost like a cliche, but what we try to fill our pages with is beauty, originality, authenticity. Especially at the World of Interiors, we celebrate workmanship, craftsmanship. So every project that has, I've just come back from Paris, that je ne sais pas quoi, and that gives a little flair, a little allure to an apartment or to a house or to a studio or a workroom, can be a different combination of colors. Can be the combination of patterns and prints together that we terribly love at the magazine. It's very much like we want to give the audience what they haven't seen before. So it is a big thing because every month is a struggle. It's a beautiful struggle to see. We've seen that before. We've done that before. We did it a year ago, 2 years ago. And that really from all the projects that we receive from interior designers, architects, photographers, owners, people like Bernie, also people who actually, brands who produce for fabrics and rugs and whatever for houses. We receive so much of that, and our screening process is very much like, have we seen this before? Is this going to be something that people are going to wow when they open the pages? Will this inspire for a project for another? This is actually the basic of where we start from, in a very, very large in sensu latus.
And there's no geographical difference between the audiences. It's just a sort of a generic desire for you to present the best, whether it's digital or print.
So I've been going 21 years, and I still find it incredibly hard to get into a magazine. A lot of my friends say, gosh, you're everywhere, and I think that's because I've got a really good PR company. But it is still incredibly hard to get in, and there are so many requirements. And without answering too many of Claire's questions up front, I find, for example, the Middle East so different to France or England or America. They all want different things. For me, the America is far easier. Middle East, so easy, because they don't have a lot of content and they want it, and they love global people.
Yes.
France, I was in AD France this year, and I was absolutely like jumping for joy and drinking champagne, because it is hard. Mm-hmm. And yes, they all want different things, and they all have different requirements. And one of my questions, hope I'm not going ahead of the game here.
You are, but that's fine.
Sorry.
It's fine.
For the first time ever, I'm doing a project whereby I've actually designed the house for the publication, which is peculiar, right? Who would ever do that? I know you're probably thinking that's mad. Admittedly,
you know what? There are many designers who do that.
Really?
Yes,
That's
they have
the
in
first
mind
time.
to have sometimes we get the call. Sorry.
No, but I think it's
Sometimes you get
important.
a call from a designer and say, Gianluca, I'm just starting to work on a project that is very you, and every single corner or wall or column, whatever, is actually puts a lot of pressure on us. I say, oh my God, what if in a year time when it's ready, it's going to be not right? But there are people who do.
Wow.
No, it's knowing the DNA of the magazine and then sort of playing Cupid with that to know that actually that's something that with the world of interiors you would know whether that's going to sort of fit the criteria. And we'll discuss what criteria that is in a minute. But firstly, okay, well, let's work out why getting published in the press is so important, or maybe it isn't. What are the benefits for the projects appearing in the pages of, especially in the UK market?
Can I answer that?
Yes.
I think it gives your customer, as an interior designer, the confidence to work with you. If they perhaps don't know you and then they see you published in a really good magazine, I think it just gives the customer that little bit more confidence. Would you agree?
100%. But I think there has to be a balance. Too much, they think it's being swamped. So it's we're going to talk about this. Quality over quantity is important.
Yeah.
Yes. No, absolutely. And but also I think it's putting yourself in front of a new audience, especially for American-based designers, for their work to be seen in the UK. That holds, major gravitas. So and then can open up a new business arm. So that's one of the reasons why getting to know the magazines and getting to know the editors is so important, isn't it? So the crux of it is you're working on a project and you know that you really want to get it featured and you know that you're going to be producing is going to be sublime. How easy is it to get owners' permission?
Very hard.
Yes. I
think
absolutely.
nowadays people are so private, and look, I think the publications now are beginning to realise it's quite hard, and they're sort of saying we could use a pseudonym, or where you're using a false name. Look, if you have a client that wants to be out there, luckily with this project that we're doing in Dubai, but most 90%, A, I'm not allowed to photograph them, and B, they just don't want to be seen in the public eye.
Classic request that we have when we have, let's say, a sensitive home full of art and antiques, or I don't know, probably the husbands have been dealing with I don't know, dirty things, dirty in a very Italian way. So it means not to the sun, to the light. It's
that
very much
coffee?
like they said. We're happy to be in the paper. We're happy to be on print, but they wouldn't like to be online. For example, for the World of Interiors online and on our social channels, we publish some of the houses that we feature in the magazines. But a lot of people prefer just to be on the magazine, on the paper, not online, because online, of course, all the Google research and everything else gets a bit too wide. But it's yes, it can be very sensitive. But we're very lucky, the World of Interiors, that some people love the idea to be just there because they trust us.
And in America, for example, they want, like celebrities actually want to be in magazines in America.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, well, that's leading nicely into it's segueing nicely into, is a celebrity home a big win? Or is it something that actually is it more about the home rather than the person who lives in it?
I think both. We're so nosy, aren't we?
We are so nosy, exactly. I think, again, it's very much like this is probably an important topic of how the American audience differs from the European audience of magazines. I mean, historically and culturally, the European magazines, interiors magazines, have always been focused on the interiors, the houses, the walls, the furniture. Everything has to do with the interior. And then, if this house is owned by, I don't know, a celebrity or a director, a film or a singer, whatever, then it's a plus. But I think, we can see in America it's a bit different, because look at what AD has become. AD completely changed with the new strategy of focusing more on the celebrity. But I think the strategy behind AD, American, then of course has been spread out to all the other ADs in the world after the second part of the strategy, where the content sharing. It was very much like the magazine wants to appeal to the general public. So the same person who reads Vogue or reads commercial magazine like Elle, Marie Claire, they would buy AD rather than decorators or people who are in the industry. That is a strategy. It's nothing wrong with it, but probably not. It's taken away the essence of why AD was created. But there is a market for everyone out there.
Gwyneth Paltrow was recently in a magazine. I'm sorry, was it?
Yeah, that
yours?
was AD.
Was AD?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think it was one of the most read magazines of that edition for that year. And I think everyone was so curious to see what she had been doing in a house and what her design styles, and she had been involved in it. So I think
There
there's
is
an
that
element.
great
Well,
sense
there
of
is
voyeurism.
It's
isn't
also
there?
there is the voyeurism, and also remember, for what has been happening now in the world of luxury, especially in fashion, where luxury has become so democratized. The next big thing, people that something we cannot buy is the way people live. So we can buy any sort of shoes, from the Valentino to Balenciaga to where, even if we're at the top of the Everest, we click and buy it.
Yeah.
What we cannot buy, the way you live at home or the way you entertain. So this is something that AD was actually great in focusing that channel to say, we want to sell, we want to promote the way people live. That is something that we cannot buy, unfortunately, because everyone has got their own different way of entertaining, of making a table or designing a room or things like that. But talking about Gwyneth Paltrow, when you asked, was with us or with AD, we hardly feature people. Actually, when we photographed houses, we never photographed the owners. It's happened to me to be as a sitting editor on someone's house shoot, and the lady was all prepared with makeup and hair, and I said, "I'm sorry, you're out of the game," because it's not what we do. So we are still very authentic to our own ethos. That is the house first.
So, Gianluca, in that case, if you had a celebrity who wanted their house featured in World of Interiors, you wouldn't feature the name or the celebrity?
We would actually. We photographed houses of some actors and actresses or fashion designers. They've been also on the cover, but it just happened to be this house is owned by XYZ. Actually, it's a very interesting topic subject because we were recently approached by kind of top model / actress, English, but based in LA, based in the US.
Yeah.
And the house is designed by a British interior designer, kind of beautiful. But so I said, yeah, looks very interesting, very modern for us. And then she said, okay, but then she wants to be in the picture and she wants to be talking
Okay.
about her projects of her house. And I said,
No.
I'm sorry, this is not us.
Yeah.
So they did it for.
The impression I always get with the world of interiors is that it's the house and the people follow afterwards. For example, the Palazzo Margherita with Francis Ford Coppola. The fact is that he had a very beautiful palazzo, but it wasn't him that was sort of the driving force to having that featured. It was the fact that it was a beautiful palazzo and it sort of, belonged to him. I remember in House and Garden, obviously this was many years ago, but we would never feature people on the cover because actually it's all about the interiors, and you never want to associate an interior with one personality because then sometimes people find them unrelatable.
Yes. That's for talking about this. We at the World of Interiors sometimes don't even feature houses on the cover. I mean, this is why I was looking for the January issue, because this is very much an example of how can we inspire and catch the eye on the shelves of the newsstands for a picture that is very us, where a hat and it's made with trimmings and tassels from.
I love it.
It's
I think it's
and it's
so
something
great.
that is it's such an iconic picture, that it's doesn't say anything about an interiors, but really makes you dream, and I hope it does to you all, because that's what we hope try to do. And it's fantastic because we look at rooms, we look at details, we look at the chair, or it's so many elements that really work on a cover. Sometimes we have 5 or 6 different covers lined up, and then we choose the only
But
one.
I think different publications do different things. So, for example, House and Gardens love it to look as though it's been lived in. Sorry, we're all looking this way rather than at you. I apologise. It's all about being lived in and feeling as though it's not staged. And then you'll have someone like an Architectural Digest where perhaps it needs to again look more natural. And then obviously World of Interiors where it is quite architectural and quite beautiful. L Decoration, for example, it's got to be quite minimalist. So every publication is very, very different.
Yes, and that's they have to stick true to their DNA in that sense, because that's what the readers expect. And from a publishing point of view, it's a great challenge editorially to make sure that you constantly find the right representatives for your brand. And Gianluca will tell you're sort of you'll have kissed many frogs to find that prince. Yeah.
So, Gianluca, if I could ask you a question. If what World of Interiors features are the more, dare I say, eccentric or unusual spaces?
Eccentric and unusual are some of the
Okay.
of the houses that we feature. I don't want to say that they're always has to be super eccentric or mad or lived in or deranged or dilapidated or whatever, as sometimes we get accused of. It's very much like places. I don't even say interiors. We featured also places, environments that have got a soul. I mean, we featured the post office of Palermo, because it's a fantastic example of a rationalist or fascist architecture, if you want to say. And he worked beautifully with the proportions of the columns, the windows, the lamps used. That is an inspiration from anyone who has got a beautiful space in New York or a big house in Gotham City, to inspire them for the combination of colors, the proportions. We featured the shack, like a shack on a big sewer.
But quite eccentric.
Eccentric in a
unusual.
way that unusual.
So if
that's
somebody
the word,
does
yes.
a really beautiful interior, like you see in Veranda magazine or those sort of magazines, is that not going to stand a chance with World of Interiors? Is that not the sort of thing you would look for?
There is something that we cannot even explain when a new project, especially new projects, have been just finished and sent to us. It can be even the most, don't get me wrong, bland house in a way that it's got just one color palette, but with the right furniture, with the right
mix.
texture, the right mix that makes it. While we don't normally like bland houses, but because it's so perfect in that.
And you know when you see it.
And I
Yeah.
know what it is here. I don't even know how to explain. You know,
Yeah.
there is not a criteria that one has to be red and blue, second has to be, I don't know. It's very much like if it's there, and it's so beautiful.
Can I ask a question? How many of you here have your own businesses or are interior designers? So a lot of you, right? And isn't it frustrating? Sorry, this is not personal. Isn't it frustrating that you can't get into magazines, right? And it's really hard, and you mustn't give up because you mustn't just think, gosh, it's only the top 10 designers. You've also got to understand that they have to sell a publication, and actually magazines, I think, it's struggling a little bit now because obviously they're going on to the digital side and most of it's online. So there's many perspectives here. Is your project right for them? Can they sell that magazine with your project in it? So don't feel offended if you're not in it. Next question.
I'm just going to jump in there because I think also when the editors are working out what house is right, it's also because of the golden thread through the editorial well. And so therefore it's not necessarily about selling the magazine because it's the front cover, there's that consideration, definitely. But it's getting the balance right in the well. And that's huge consideration every month, isn't it? It's sort of major conversations. Now, I'm going to ask whether it helps interior design practices to win awards, create that standout, or if you're part of, lucky to be part of a top 100 list or something. Does that help? Now, Catherine, you've won many awards, so you would know whether that's opened doors for you.
Can I ask, has anybody here won an award? Okay, so we're going to change that. Well done. So we're going to change that. So first of all, don't beat yourself up, because sometimes I'm in it, sometimes I'm not in it. Does it at my age, my tenure of 21 years, do I care about award? Of course I do. Does it mean everything for me? No. When June comes out, sorry, just picking House and Gardens, and I don't make it that year and I did it 2 years ago, it's fine. It's normal. It is absolutely normal. But yes, if you're building your business, to get awards is absolutely everything, because you can say to your client, oh my gosh, I've just won this. But if you're pitching to the US market, they don't really care if you're top 50 of Country Life or top 100 of House and Gardens. It's not the be all and the end all.
But I do think
It is for
that if
Bernie.
you top AD
Yes.
100, I think for our world, that's like winning an Oscar.
Yes.
Am I right? In America. I think it seems super, super important.
We looked
AD.
at it too, but although we don't have a list of awards or any sort of such a thing. But actually, I know as an editor and other editors, we always look at the awards won by some designers. He has a little, of course, he has
I
an
think so.
impact.
Yes,
and
no,
it's
the-
Especially British in the US, because there's only 4 or 5. It makes all the difference.
Yes, no, absolutely. So, Gianluca, what makes the perfect pitch? So, the designers here today, they haven't won awards, but if they sent you things to getting across your desk, what would you like to see? How it's presented? Sort of how important is imagery?
Imagery is important up to a certain point for us. Sometimes I get sent pictures beautifully lit and perfectly styled by designers, and I said, can you just go back and take pictures with your iPhone with the natural light? Because the decorated, overstyled, it works against us. But that's very the world of interiors. Although I used to work for AD, I used to also contribute for AD magazine, and I remember AD has got a different approach. I mean, AD asks designers to send a pitch with the properly styled houses. So it's a different way of seeing that. What makes the world of interiors? It's very much like houses with individuality. That's what I always say. Houses that got a soul. You immediately spot the houses where the decorator had just 100%, 120% green light on everything. What we like is there is a conversation between the clients and the decorator. I think it's so important to have a personal element in it, that even if it's just a little detail here and there, it makes it. And as I said, sometimes we don't know why, but it just comes out in the pictures,
So
even
Catherine-
from an iPhone picture.
So, Catherine, when you can and you get permission to get your work published, do you? Every interior designer will have their own personal shots, but do you then just take some iPhone pictures, obviously make sure it's finished and everything before sending it in, because you know that the magazines will reshoot it anyway in their
They don't
their
always
language.
reshoot
Okay.
it. So
Okay.
quite recently, I think budgets they haven't. So there's one thing you need to know about me. My least favourite job of being an interior designer is taking photographs and being in a photo shoot. I absolutely loathe it, a bit like Bernie here. But in front of me, I have 3 of my lovely digital department, social media department, and they are the most patient people with me. They'll come up and tweak my hair and my blouse, and it's hours and hours. But it's so important how it ends up and how you look. It really is critical. That's the first thing. Second thing, they're expensive. Photographers are expensive. Videographers are expensive, and I video everything. Always have it done, because that is your marketing tool, and it really... It's very important. I can see someone over there saying, "I told you so." So it's absolutely critical.
I mean, there are photographers and photographers. Probably this is our view, our the way we work. We know which photographer is better for a house or rather than another. For example, I was in Paris until yesterday, and Saturday afternoon I went to see a very peculiar house. When I say peculiar, in a way, for his style. In Levallois, so it's just outside in the banlieue of Paris. And the picture that they sent me before by Jérôme Galland, who is a great French photographer, with all the lights on, all these tiles shiny, I just said, I think there is something there, but I really would love to see it by myself. So they must have spent a lot of money in using Jérôme Galland, who is a great French photographer, Paris-based. While I went there on Saturday, and I was so much happier to ask to put all the lights off and photograph it with my iPhone, because the atmosphere of all these Moroccan tiles and all this handicrafted work, fretwork, all handmade, was much nicer. It adds that kind of warmth atmosphere that is actually the house as it is.
I also think, though, when you're doing your photographs, it's really important that you think of Instagram, obviously being portrait, and do get lots of different shots, because you've probably seen a lot of people where they're going, "Gosh, I haven't seen that shot. Is that a new project?" So you're sort of deceiving the public, really. But it's really important to have lots of different looks and feels, angles from different photographs, because the press may not be interested in it, but certainly you can use it from a digital
But I'm
marketing.
assuming you've got to be careful about if you want it published, you don't put it over Instagram.
100%.
You keep that back, and because the magazines won't publish anything that's been seen anywhere else. So, Catherine, I'm going to ask you this: what makes good content to put forward? And so, how do you build the narrative and the story of why this is a great house to feature?
I think it's about pitching which magazine you want to go for, first of all. And you'll know from the style. Most interior designers have one style. I try to be very different in my styles. So, for example, if it's something very classical, which unfortunately I've not been able to publish hardly any of those things, it really would have been great for Interiors ID or not even a Country Life, perhaps even a House and Gardens.
And do you think is it the full house, or can you actually then pitch vignettes, whether it's an amazing study or a hall or a kitchen?
100%.
Yes, because and also that's very good online, isn't it?
And a silly example,
online coverage.
Country Life were doing a piece on Jack Russells. I mean, I just live and breathe Jack Russells, right? And it's things like that. I know it's nothing to do with interiors, but it's to do with you personally. So there's loads of different angles, and I think it's really important to speak to all the press, have your list of 12, and then just say, what are you doing this quarter? Or what? And be advanced, because they're already doing Christmas.
No, but that's sort of, if the project's very personal to you, and you have a wonderful story about that goes with it. Catherine, with Forter Castle, where you sort of rescued it, and it was a family home, wasn't it? That's amazing, and then people really buy into that narrative as well, because they want to be part of that story. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
It'd be great for World of Interiors, actually. So this is a
My email.
I do now. And actually it's dripped head to toe in De La Cogne, which is really beautiful. All the walls. So I'll quickly tell you about it. It was built in 1561, and it was destroyed and burnt down 100 years later, and it laid a ruin for 300 years. And my father drove past it, fell in love with it, and rebuilt it. I mean, it really is a great labour of love. The only problem is, in those days, they didn't wash, so there were no bathrooms, so somehow we had to try to put in bathrooms. But we have, because it's so cold up there, and central heating is so expensive nowadays. In fact, I told you how much it would cost, you would die. But I then covered it, all the walls, I cladded with beautiful De La Cogne fabric, and it just adds that warmth. I put a trim around all the edges. I had a lovely lady lie on her back for 6 weeks and designed a beautiful ceiling. So we wanted to be original in our thinking, but we wanted to have modern comforts. The problem with that house was it was my first project I ever designed. The man who owned it was left-handed, and he was a swordsman. So the staircase was back to front. And of course, when I went to install everything, I had to cut everything in half and glue it together, or clamp it together, because it was done back to front. But it has featured in more magazines than I could possibly do any of my other own interiors, because I could do a rolled-top bathroom, or a Drummond's beautiful old shower, or the ceiling, or the beautiful fabric on the wall. It has so many different
and the full
things you
kind
can
of
talk about it.
restoration.
And the restoration
Sorry.
of it.
So, Gianluca,
Can I go back
yeah.
to the question you actually the previous question? It was all about, like a kitchen, a room can be a study. Yes. For example, sometimes we receive projects that where the kitchen or the bathroom, as we call it, is the hero shot. Means that there is something so special about that study or the kitchen or the main bathroom or the master bedroom that actually creates the whole of the story around it. And then yes, we like to promote them in a way that is even you just need one interesting room in your
and
house,
that opens the
really
doors.
Gianluca, am I not correct that it's for all the lovely clients that don't get featured, it's not because their projects are no good, it's the right thing at the right time, because you may have one page left, or you may want to mix a particular project with a different look.
Yeah, we like to mix projects. I mean, that doesn't mean that, for example, this Mongiardino-esque decorated boat sits very well with a very sleek house in New York. Actually, it's a perfect contrast. So it's what we try to achieve with the World of Interiors, what I tell everyone, is the surprising effect. So from the magazine, differently probably from other magazines, there is not a specific look that we are recognized for. We want to, as I said, we want to feature places and houses with soul, places where decorators and clients can dare. We were talking about, the old swans, all these Fifth Avenue princesses of a time. They were daring, with all the best interior designers, the Nan Kempner, the Marella Agnellis. Those are the women who really put so much energy in those houses, together with the decorators, hand in hand. They were not scared.
European? Would you take European?
We take projects from
You're
everywhere in the
worldwide.
world. Yeah. I mean, a house in Japan, a cinema in as we did, a theater in the Czech Republic. I don't know, a houseboat in Naples, as we said, a houseboat in New York, as the ones we featured, as I mentioned before, by Jamie Bush. Totally global. We photographed this in France, in Italy, in England. I did a project, decorated by Vier Granny, and it was in American AD.
I think it is sort of with House and Garden it was very had its heart UK based, but then we feature American, European, something that it fits with what the magazine stands for. But also, I think another point to say is, I know it might sound a basic thing, but when you're photographing and sending things in, or even just make sure there's no sort of seasonality to it, because the editors will think, actually, this is a great house, but it might sit on the file for over a year or whatever until it finds the right playmates for that issue. So no one should ever get worried about the timelines can really be quite lengthy, because the content has to be perfect for what that issue is trying to deliver.
And organised. So, for example, if you're doing a Christmas shoot, you really need to be doing that in May so that it gets in for the Christmas shoot. Or if you're doing Valentine's, you really should be doing that in September. It's just about being organised in what you're doing.
Yeah, for example, this never applies to us. We photograph the houses they are. We're not seasonal at all. But the seasonality of it, and just to give a little example of how differently we work from AD or from another American magazine. When I used to style or being a sitting editor for an AD shoot, I would have ordered hundreds of flowers, the most colorful possible, to fill corners or to put it on a side table next to the beds. We are shooting a house in London that is very exciting. It's actually very full of contemporary art. And the owner, she said, "What flowers do you want me to get?" And I said, "Take the flowers that you would buy anyway, that reflects your personality. We don't like orchids in general." So I said, "No orchids, but anything that has to be yours. What would you actually what would you put next to your bed?"
So it feels part of the soul of the house.
The soul of the house. Even a flower or a plant. It's just that actually I put geraniums, like pelargoniums, on my table. Fantastic, go for it. We're going to love it even more. Something that I always think about it. For a designer, when you're working on a project, I think it's so important to know the publications that you love. And whenever you design a house, like for example, we have designers who send us like, "Oh, I've done this in America, there are 12, 13 projects, and none of them are right for us." And I said, "You know what, stop doing that." Not because I don't want to receive emails from you, but just say, why don't you just have the sensitivity of a project, said, "You know what, this is better for El Decor than for the World of Interiors," then I will appreciate it even more. So even to be smart, okay, you're desperate probably to be featured or whatever, but also be smart, be clever in, the relationship with the editors to do it rightly.
You must have so many people pitching to you every month. Also, it's
Every day, every minute, and it's only going to it's going to get bigger after this session. So, Bernie, your products have been featured in many houses, in many magazines throughout the world. Can you immediately see the sort of the effect of that? When on publication date, and not only is it the sort of halo effect of being associated with that project and with that magazine, but also in terms of business sales performance.
Very often we can, but if a client, for example, orders a plain cream sheer, and this is featured in the magazine, nobody's going to notice because it's a plain cream hanging. If it's something that's definitely Dell'Acogna, one of our woven fabrics,
Textures,
one of our
yes.
particular colours, the textures or the Paisley collection, then absolutely we see a difference. We get the phone calls. But if it's just a plain product, which is, by the way, what most designers use, plain products, then not so much.
It's a very interesting question, Claire. Do you see the return on a press piece? I think that's really the question. And funny enough, I have a couple of rental properties, and my husband, who's in charge of renting it, was saying, "Gosh, the market's really down next year. We haven't got that many rentals." And then we had an amazing piece in one of our properties in the Lake District, and it was a 7-page piece, and not necessarily a very fancy publication, but we got 12 inquiries that all converted from that. So that's a prime example of where.
Well, and also then it's having the strategy post publication, isn't it? To be able to really promote that not only to your clients and everything, but also to your audiences on social media and everything else. In fact, I know exactly your cottage in the Lake District, isn't it? Yes. See, now I spotted it.
It was a nice piece, and it was Christmas.
Yeah,
done months ago.
No, and it's beautiful. So it is sort of managing your expectations about media coverage, isn't it? And knowing you have your dream list, but also then thinking if the client says and is happy to be featured, it's then managing that with them very carefully. So you sort of aim high, and then just so to avoid disappointment, you then sprinkle in a strategy that can be that can ensure publication, but not necessarily the full feature, but a feature that the little bits that can create longevity throughout.
And
throughout the
sometimes
year, because
clients change their minds. You know,
Yes.
we did this huge chateau in the south of France. I mean, I'm talking huge. And it was featured in AD France. That took me 2-3 years to convert him to please agree to it. And it can actually be a case study when you're seeing new clients, this is what I've done, please see. And they, like Bernie was saying, are impressed that actually you're in AD, 7 pages. So it is also a marketing tool. It's a very powerful marketing tool.
And I think if you've got a project that is fully sort of highlighting a particular craftsmanship or featuring an amazing artist, that's always worth sort of promoting as well. I don't want to use the word trends because magazines very rarely want to be, especially the world of interiors. It's not about trends. It's about something incredibly special. But some magazines might want to sort of, touch on a certain trend, especially if it's gearing towards a very good sustainability story or something like that. That could be of interest.
I also think you asked me if the phone starts ringing off the hook straight away. But I think if you get featured in a fabulous publication like World of Interiors, people hold on to them. So although you may not see an immediate reaction, you certainly will get one. And I think that's even more important for designers. You might expect clients to be calling you straight away, but it's very unlikely to happen in my experience. It takes a little while, but it doesn't matter because they've seen your project and they're going to come back to you.
And also it's people talking about the projects and have you seen this, have you seen that? And every month there's always a discussion about what projects are being featured in magazines. And they're very, very, very powerful mediums, not only in print but also digitally.
A lot of interior designers will finish a project, photograph it, and then they can't use it on social media for maybe a year or two, waiting and hoping. That's where I think a lot of challenges
That's what I always say.
happen.
The other day I said to someone who's been emailing me every single day saying, when is the house coming out? When is the house coming out? And I said, we don't have the right issue yet. If your project is time sensitive because the owner wants to sell it, because there is someone gave you free tiles or whatever for the publication, then we're very happy to give it back to you and give it to someone else.
Sure.
So either you play the game or you don't. I'm sorry to say, but not with any arrogance. It's just a matter of when they're going to come out.
Yeah, but I have heard that as a problem.
Oh, I mean, every day I can show you, even now, some emails, because I know that
don't,
someone, actually, by checking the time, I saw an email from someone, exactly. So I said, okay, now I have to deal in the while I'm in the taxi.
No, people get very impatient. I remember that well. It's such an important topic that, and I think we've done a really good job exploring it. I think it's left for me to say huge thank you to Bernie for organising this talk and actually sitting and christening her newly expanded space here, which we're all very excited about. And obviously, huge thanks for your insight and your expertise, Catherine and Gianluca. It's been amazing, and thank you for listening. Thank you.